Chairman Alan Reinhardt is here. We
Okay.
also, and
So
Rob,
Bill saved our bacon. We're now recording for the cloud.
oh, good. Okay. And Rob McNeil is also present. I don't see anyone else coming up, so we'll see if people chime in as we go along. So public comment. I just want to welcome Phil officially as a member of the committee now. He went before the select board. This was when December 9th, I think it was, and was unanimously approved as a member of our committee. So that brings us up to 9. And fortunately, we need 5 for a quorum, and we have a quorum here today with Phil. Okay, approval of minutes. The minutes from November 17th were circulated. Any errors, omissions, anything else regarding the minutes from last month's meeting?
Alan,
Seeing none, I'd entertain.
Alan,
Yes, Phil.
I think because and Lee may know about this, but I was not a member last month, although I attended the meeting. I don't know whether it's appropriate for me to vote or not on that.
We're generous. Yes, you may
Yeah,
vote.
yeah. I don't see an issue with that. So
This is a real test.
yeah,
See how you're gonna vote.
yeah, exactly.
What do I do?
Yeah,
Okay, so I need a motion to approve the minutes from November 17.
I'd be happy to do that.
Okay,
Probably
we have a
competition.
motion, Bill and Rick
Let
second.
the new guy make the motion.
So moved.
No. He can vote, but I think it would be
Yeah,
unwise
don't put the
to-
pressure
all
on
right.
him too much.
All right, we have Bill Greeter and then we have Rick Atherton as second. All in favor of the minutes from the 17th? Lee,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Phil,
Aye.
Rick,
And
and chairman votes aye. Okay, those minutes are approved. So item number 1, chapter 91, the Harbor Walk Harbor Plan Update and the Nantucket Historical Commission. I put this first on the agenda, and I was planning this was going to be our big item this month. Unfortunately, the people I wanted to participate have conflicts. I called Andrew Vorse, and I just got a notice from him today that he has a conflicting meeting at 4 today. I had also contacted the Conservation Committee, Jeff Carlson. I got the secretary, and I called back and she said that Phil has a meeting also today at 4, not Jeff. Jeff has a meeting also today at 4. Hi, Leslie, welcome.
Thank you. Sorry to be
This-
delayed.
That's all right. We just approved the minutes and we have a quorum present and so on.
Okay.
So those two key people unfortunately can't be here. I suspect they're at the same meeting somewhere, but anyway, it was sort of a breakthrough to get, to be able to get a hold of them. But the other person, Hillary Raport, and I got an email from Hillary. She's chair of the Historic Commission. As you know, anyway, the Historic Commission, or Hillary, I should say, and the Historic Commission are working on the downtown harbor, the new harbor plan. And I spoke with her for nearly an hour about several weeks ago. And this is why I set this particular item first on the agenda. She had she had some pretty extensive data about the harbor plan. And I told her that I wanted information about Chapter 91 and the difficulty of locating those records. To my surprise, Hillary said that it was relatively easy to get those, um, to get whatever, the documents that we need from what is it, the DEP or whatever the bureau is in Boston that controls those. And I just heard from Hillary yesterday that she has she will not be attending. She had another engagement. Her son has there was something with her son, so she could not attend the meeting either. So the three main people that I thought would bring some light, shed some light on this issue of Chapter 91 licenses are not available. So what I'd like to do right now is to figure out what it is that we are attempting to do. My understanding is that what we want to generate is a list of the Chapter 91 licenses that have been issued on island. And those are the records that I was assuming we had to go to Boston to get. You remember when Joe Marklinger was on the committee? And he mentioned that in order to get those records, you had to go up to Boston, and there's a whole long procedure and so on. According to Hillary, that isn't so, that they are available on the internet. And that's what I was hoping she would be here to explain how that process worked. She explained to me how it was, but of course it was pretty detailed and so on. And unfortunately, she didn't send me the links that I needed to get that information. So with regard to the Chapter 91 licensing for the town, am I correct in assuming that what we are aiming for is a list of all the licenses on Nantucket that have been issued in some sort of a listing form? So we have an address and we have the status of the license. Is there anything else that we were looking for? Yes, Rick.
Alan,
Now,
Rick first and then
Go ahead.
Lee.
just a couple of thoughts. Number one, I'm not sure what Hillary's referring to, but she may well be referring to, at least I believe, the Chapter 91 licenses are attached to the property record site, and if you knew the property address, you ought to be able to get it on the deeds page, if they were all filed properly.
Right.
And Lee would know more about that than I do, but I suspect that might be what's going on. And I would like to remind us, and we had this before us before, that the Harbor's Plan report, or the implementation committee, has 4 pages of an Excel spreadsheet listing Chapter 91 licenses for a number of parcels. They don't include the licenses themselves, but they do identify their locations. And that's a great starting point for anything we do. And I've got a copy, and I think we circulated it to all the members of the committee 4 years ago. So I thought that might be helpful. I think Hillary was doing a lot of the Harbor Place issues off the same license that we all saw 18 months ago, which is the license granted to NIR, the people who own the property down there. So.
Right. Yeah, that's correct. She is working. The historical commission is going to weigh in with the select board in terms of their recommendations for the updated harbor plan. I did take a look at the existing harbor plan, which was done, I believe, in 2009. And Roads and Right-of-Way Committee was actually involved with that. Sarah Oaktai was the chair of that group. And the public access part of that plan specifies that Roads and Right-of-Way Committee is going to be, would be involved in that.
Alan, could I just mention another thing? I think Hillary was mentioning, which let's assume it's correct, but someone else can chime in. Are plans, harbor plans good for 10 years only? Is that, Lee, you may know more again, so let me stop right there.
Right, Lee?
Okay. Yeah, so there's a bunch of things. I was liaison to the Harbor Plan Implementation Committee, and the chair of the committee, very wise, very knowledgeable, but very complex, made it such a chore that not everybody understood what it was we were recommending. But a number of the elements of the recommendation of implementation have been done. Now, Chapter 91, even in those days, if you went to their website, it said, oh, you can see all the licenses online. Unfortunately, that was a wishful thinking in those days. And they weren't online. When you got down to it, as Joe Marklinger said, you had to go to Boston on a particular day, on a particular hour, with those license numbers that you wanted to look at. I will double check as I'm working on these minutes to see whether or not there's been any change. If there has been, then Hillary is absolutely right. We ought to be able to gather information and set up our spreadsheet. If nothing's changed, then we've got to go back through Jeff. Now,
I got a question, Lee.
just a minute, Bill. If I got you, if the Conservation Commission puts an order of condition of a Chapter 91 license on their list of conditions, those licenses will be attached to the deed. But the only way you can find them is go deed by deed,
Right.
looking up under the heading license. I asked our recorder whether or not we could have Chapter 91 licenses as a separate heading, and I think the answer was no way. Bill, sorry.
That's okay. Do you have screen sharing enabled on this?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Are we
didn't
able
hear.
to screen share?
Try it.
Because I just
I'm on their website.
went on the website. Let me see if I can find it before I lost it. Go back here.
So a number of major elements. Hi, Bill. Ed. A number of our major elements have been applying for Chapter 91. And that includes the boat basin and the steamship. So we know that the town is asking people to comply.
Okay, is that it, Lee? Anything else on?
Yeah, I will be double checking.
I see. Okay. Bill, did you have something to add? There we go. There we go.
So that's, I just went to the website now, and at least at first blush, it appears that the same scenario is, in person, hours of operation.
Oh, I see. Right.
And it appears that it's specific information. Here it is, property is located, description of property, and whether we've done a waterways research before.
Right.
So maybe because Hillary has a particular project or whatever, she's able to do a much easier process.
Right. Right.
But anyhow, that's a quick flash. That's what I found.
Yeah. Okay. Well, So sounds like we're sort of back. Yes, Rick?
I see Art Gasparo's on, and he has certainly hands-on experience with properties applying for Concom permits for whatever reason. And I know that he knows when those properties have or should have Chapter 91 licenses.
Mhm.
And Art might be willing, maybe, to comment on the Concom's process when that occurs and
Mhm.
how involved they are and whether or not the Conservation Commission is supplied with copies of existing licenses for those properties and or their amendment or new licenses in some instances.
Great. Wow.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Art?
if I could, sure, I'd
Sure.
speak as a member of the public, joins your committee. I was sort of logged on for traffic safety items,
Mhm.
have a strong interest in waterways and Chapter 91 as well. And what I would offer is that most likely the listing that she may have been referring to is through the Registry of Deeds website. And if you do an advanced search, and you can sort by choosing license and then date, and like I just did it quick, came up with 9 pages of licenses going back to 1931, you know, so and then you'd have to do that on the registered and recorded sides, and you could, you know, kind of get a whole, you know, pile. Now that's a whole lot of individual documents to sort through. And what I would offer to this committee is that perhaps, you know, there are licenses for a lot of different things, basically any alteration of land within historic filled tidelands. So in some cases, you might have a cottage on Old North Wharf, for example, or it's not all docks and piers, I guess is what I would say, and they don't all have the rights of access. And, you know, so while I think it would be nice to have some kind of a comprehensive list, I don't know that it also is probably a very large undertaking.
Right.
And if this committee is sort of focused on, and I don't know if you are, but if this is a direction that perhaps to limit that scope, is that it's more related to rights of access along the shoreline.
Sure.
And a better or a more streamlined approach might be to simply go property by property for the properties along the waterfront, and then just check the Registry of Deeds, as sort of was referred to earlier, instead of looking at all licenses. And then you could, you know, compile basically, you know, by property. And there may be a way also that could be linked with the GIS, for example. Mr. Porter might be able to help with some kind of an indexing once you actually find those. So that's just some thoughts I had, that to go through all licenses, some of them are overlapping, of course, with development of properties. I mean, you really get into a pretty big project there. But the quick way is a sort. And then there's 2 different categories. There's license, and there's another category called license and plan when you do the advanced search. So you probably have to kind of sort through those. And then not every license is a waterway license. For example, a license might have been granted for a different reason and use the term license. So somebody would be sitting for days kind of sorting through a lot of that stuff. But that's probably the best way to go about it. In addition to Mr. Atherton's reference to the harbor plan index, I use that personally as well a lot to, you know, check.
Art, that was helpful. Leslie and I had several interviews with Jeff Carlson, and Leslie helped me out, but he had several thick loose leaf notebooks of Chapter 91 licenses that he'd been able to gather. I think one of our missing links is talking to Jeff to see what on earth exists here on the island. Leslie, what thoughts do you have?
He does have great big thick books. They're hard to read and follow. At least I found them to be so. I have, it's been maybe 2 years since I've accessed them, and I don't know whether they're up to date.
Right. Our
Again,
Rick?
Yeah,
Rick?
just to remind us again of two things. Andrew Vorse volunteered Nathan Porter to get a layer. So Art, you're right on target with that idea. It came up a couple months ago. And I think we volunteered, and didn't seem to be very helpful, to make copies of those licenses from Jeff's office. No response to multiple requests and offers, so that it wouldn't take him any work at all. We would do all the work, and then the licenses would be available. And at some point, we're going to have to decide whether we want to just forget this because they're becoming unavailable and it's more difficult than it has to be, or we got to take some further action and make some further inquiries. So that's my thought, Alan.
Okay, the whole purpose of this, the reason that Roads and Right-of-Way is involved with this at all is because of the public access portion of the licensing. And I think Art's suggestion of figuring out what it is that we want, if there's a specific area, let's say, and we want to determine what the licenses are, to get those addresses and to work from the addresses that we want to see. I know that there are many, that there are a number of them. For example, Lee and I went down to check down on Swain's Neck, where there was a Chapter 1 license required for a bridge that went over the connector between East Pulpus and West Pulpus Harbor, that the prior owner had just gone ahead and built without any permits or anything like that. When the property was sold, he had to provide a Chapter 91 license before the new buyer would purchase that property, which he did. And so Lee and I went down to inspect the construction and verify that in fact there was a plaque on the side, a little small plaque, saying that this was a Chapter 91 licensed project. The land bank, in doing the same thing, when we put a dock at our property at the next to Otison's down at the Bachman property, we built a dock down there, and on our little dock, we had to put a plaque about the Chapter 91 license. So I'm just trying to think in terms of our committee, where we can just focus on the public access, particularly public access to the water. I'm just trying to think if there are other public access issues that would require Chapter 91. I don't think so.
Ponds.
Leslie?
Isn't there public access for ponds? Ponds, ponds. But the second thing that Lee and I were working on so long ago was an educational piece that's similar to those owners in Pulpus. It's not well known unless you happen to have a surveyor like Art who alerts you that you can't just, it's very confusing for everybody as to what's private property and what's public property. So that's the first thing, or what has private, well, is it public and private, and what has public access and what doesn't. Right. And most people are not, everybody's got their own opinion. We're a little short on the facts. And so the other thought that we had so long ago was an educational piece, and to get the information out that people, what they needed to be concerned about. And in fact, the Chapter 90, the Waterways website has a lot of information about what needs to be permitted, what doesn't need to be permitted. Not top of mind for most people.
Correct. Good.
There was that second piece for the committee. Besides the ensuring the public access, I think ensuring that the conditions are adhered to. So for instance, the restrooms at the Dreamland and the restrooms on Old Straight Wharf were
Mhm.
a particular issue when Bob DaCosta was on the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
The Reith property, when it was redone off of Easy Street there. You know, that used to be the Lobster Pot Gallery and other things.
Oh, yes, right.
I think
Right.
that if they have a chapter 91, it's sort of in arrear, you know, a look back, oh, let's do it,
Right.
rather than something that was thought of in the process of the development.
Now, they may have a chapter 91 because they did have to mark the public access.
Correct.
And in fact, I think Art was involved in that too, but they
It's
used,
wonderful. It's wonderful.
yeah,
that
exactly.
public access.
That's exactly the kind of thing we want to encourage wherever there is public access. If you haven't been down there for a while, it's between Charlie Noble and I forget what's on the other side, but
It's a store that's changed hands a couple times. It's the back entrance to anyway, doesn't matter.
I'm sorry, Ed.
It's the back entrance to the Dreamland there. Say alley.
Well, yeah, the Dreamland had to do extensive, plus the bathrooms and so on. The other, the building that replaced the Lobster Pot Gallery on the other side of, on the same side as the Dreamland, but down.
The building that John Wraith built that
Yeah.
the Elizabeth Brim Gallery and all that in there these days. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
access that goes through there and down the steps apparently, right?
Exactly. And we were directly involved in that. In fact, they used the same markers that we used at the Great Harbor Yacht Club when we did Great Harbor Yacht Club. So they had to provide the access. So I think that's the kind of thing that we're looking for. Wherever there's some construction or a property that could provide access to the water, those are the licenses, or those are the properties that we want to see if there is a license, and if there isn't, figure out what to do about it. Yes.
Well, I think the bigger issue is not just finding out if the license isn't the issue, but is alerting the public to the fact that there is access there. I mean, a lot of people don't know what those things mean. A lot of people don't realize they have the access when they see those signs. They don't know what they refer to, quite frankly.
Well,
That's part of the education piece.
Exactly.
Exactly. The education piece, and perhaps we could point out some examples, such as Great Harbor Yacht Club and
A map in the future, perhaps, like we do have a land bank map, like we have maps to XYZ.
Mhm.
I think that people would like to know that these places exist because, without hunting them out.
Right. And that was part of the genesis of the idea of the working on the Chapter 91, getting a better understanding of Chapter 91, so that if just as an example, the
Great white elephant has it. Yeah.
yeah, White Elephant is a good example. They used to have a sign, and I haven't seen that sign a bit, that used to be able to walk all the way down to the Coast Guard station, presumably, although you had to hop off the. But anyway, they're that whole length from the Coast Guard station all the way around over to Children's Beach. There supposedly is Chapter 91. There are Chapter 91 licenses. The other one,
the one big beach licenses as well at some point, I think, right? Or am I wrong there? A lot of the Hubbard Ave is under the one big beach kind of plan. Some of the negotiations there.
yeah, right, but those ways are marked. I think there were 5 ways from Charles Street down to Willard Street.
Right, but the public doesn't always know they have lateral parallel to the water access. I mean, they know they can get there. They just don't know that they're allowed to go left and right, for instance.
Oh, I see. I see. As far as the one big beach.
Like if you were out for a walk and you knew that at certain tide levels, you know, whatever, you have rights across there. And I'm not talking about the fishing, fouling, that rights. I'm talking about the one big
One
beach.
big beach.
associated right.
Exactly. Correct.
Alan,
You could go
just
for
a
a
comment,
walk.
and I think, well,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rick. Rick?
yeah, I think in terms of Hobart, we'll find that the one big beach portion is just where those lateral ways hit the water
No,
and the lots on either side. But once you go beyond those lots, and if there are other parcels between the ways, I don't think you're going to find one big beach easements on any of those properties.
That's correct.
some of them have been joined though. There's some that are, like you said, they're lateral, but some of them connect to others that are also have participated in the one big beach. So
Right.
it's a, I know that's not our purview, the one big beach, but it's kind of like periphery to this 91, chapter 91 license thing as far as public access, as you would say.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Alan?
And our committee was very much involved in the One Big Beach program, the original one at Surfside that instigated the whole thing. I don't think there is a problem on Brant Point or along Hobart Avenue as far as people walking the beaches and so on, or at least not that I'm aware of.
In season, it's a different story than out of season, I think.
Well, yeah,
Alan,
yes. Yes.
this is Phil.
Oh, hi, Phil. Yes.
I'm the new guy, so I have to be careful what I say, but I
Oh, no,
think
you
it almost sounds like a two-part issue, though. One is documenting and categorizing or cataloging all of these. But I suspect that there's another piece to this, which is periodic, and you can decide what the appropriate period is, but a periodic sort of like check that, okay, this hasn't been, somebody hasn't put a garden through the, over the thing or put a fence across it or something, because, we may have it all neatly cataloged, but find out that over time, if nobody has raised an issue, people have, human nature has taken over. And I would think maybe would that be part of our role too?
Phil, Lee, from the Real Estate Assessment Committee, we have spent almost a year straightening out James Street because of that very problem. Pleased to report that it is now straight, and that beginning next spring, you should be able to go down James Street to the water. Right, Rick?
I know full well, and I think going back to the Chapter 91 issue there, you can look at the Chapter 91 easements provided, and you'll know that they don't very, very far off of the James Street pathway to the right or to the left.
That's true. True.
I guess my
Which they could have if we wanted to negotiate for them.
But I guess my only point is that is part of this committee's role is to ensure that that these different locations have the right of way, but B, they have not been in some way local, the adjacent property owners haven't abused that in some way, and we don't know about it because nobody's said anything.
Right. Ed?
I think part of the issue here, whether it's, and I think it's under the purview of a committee, perhaps, maybe it's an overstep, is finding the accesses to the water. And the next thing is to, once you get to the water, what can you do once you're there? I mean, I think there's kind of two kind of intermingling questions there. I mean, you get the access, which has been provided, and all of a sudden you're there. What can I do once I'm at the water now? So, and I think like bike paths, like ways, like anything, it would be nice at some point in the future. I mean, it's not an immediate future, obviously, but to have it where you know, you get to the water and you can go left or right in the path of walking or whatever you do, and you know the rights to get from A to B, I guess you could say.
That is, of course, a larger issue, as we're discovering out at Little Neck, with Scott White and the activity. The select board has been dealing with that for over a year now. I met with Scott White and Kent Mogran. The three of us met at Scott White's house while Scott explained the law as he understood it. Let's put it that way. And we didn't get any sort of resolution there. The select board presumably is following up on that. I know Matt Fee was very much very much interested in that, and he remains interested in public access, also in One Big Beach. With regard to Phil's comment about inspecting or periodic checking the ways that we know exist, generally what we do is we respond if someone complains. If someone tries to get through and they can't, they will contact somebody in the town, and that will get back to roads and right of way. I would say is we have 36 of those upright granite monuments, plus we have a number of I think 6 or 8 flush ones around the island, and I periodically, as I'm cruising around the island, will check just to make sure that those are there. But that's a good point as far as the follow-up. But again, as we know, anytime we get a complaint that comes in from the public, we always respond to it.
Starting to sound like Washington Street in Mattocket to me.
Yeah, right, exactly. Another situation, of course, is that building at the, as you go down to Washington Street Extension, those condominiums that are right after the little public beach there. They had to redo the bulkhead around there. And after they did that, I went to see if they had done any public access, because there is a porch that goes around the outside, and there isn't. So that would be maybe a good place to start, to get that address, see what we can find locally as far as the license, and see if there was any public access that was provided there.
Taken away. Well,
Hmm?
and taken away, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you familiar with that one, Ed?
I am actually. I'm not familiar with exactly where the access was supposed to be, but they're probably, I can't see where it is now. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I went up.
Ellen Lee,
Yes.
Leslie and I looked at all the deeds. It's a condo deeded thing. So
Mhm.
it's address A, address B, address C, address D, each with a separate deed. And they've got all kinds of Conservation Commission conditions, but we couldn't find a Chapter 91 license.
Oh.
Leslie, is that correct?
Leslie, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yes, I confirm Lee's point. It was a lot of research and a lot of tricky curves, but we didn't find any Chapter 91 license.
Mhm. All right. Well, maybe that would be a place to start. I mean, to approach Jeff Carlson and Andrew Vorse about that particular property. See
Well,
what,
Alan, it ties back to the original premise of this item, this agenda item, that is Harbor Walk,
Mhm.
because it's a big gap
It is.
in
Indeed.
being able to get from the town to the springs.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Well,
That would be, to me, that would be the premise we proceed on, is the walk, because quite frankly, the access is next door. There's access to the right, and I mean, a little bit to the right and right to the left.
mhm.
But the access in the front is what's important to this walk. So I think from that standpoint, from a practical standpoint, it's important. As far as traversing the property to walk down and jump over their deck, I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
that doesn't really matter one way or the other, quite frankly.
Right, right. All right, well, maybe that would be a place to start this with, as I say, with Andrew Vorse and with Jeff Carlson. And that could be whatever we find out as far as the situation there. Art, are you familiar with that project at all?
The Harbor Walk?
Yeah, well, yeah, the Harbor Walk, but that specific property at the beginning of Washington Street Extension.
I'm not. I mean, I know the property, but I haven't been involved with it at all.
Right, okay. All right, well, as I say, that might be, once we, okay.
There was some,
Yeah, Ed?
there was some recent, there must have been some more recent research down there for one reason or another, not necessarily for this reason, because of the fact that next to the Great Harbor Yacht Club, they were allowed to do the put the piers out and, put the docks. So I
Right.
know there was extensive Concom, there was extensive, back and forth with the town and the board
Right.
be able to put those piers out there. So there must have been some sort of research into like what rights they have. I mean, what rights over the cross. I don't know. I would have thought that would have come up in all that conversation, perhaps. I don't
Okay, well, as I say, maybe that would be a good place to start, to just sort of find out what happened there, whether, obviously there should have been Chapter 91 licenses for both the condominiums and the other structures along that way. And what we learn from that will maybe enlighten us about the process elsewhere around the island, the other places where there are issues or potential. All right, so the idea is, again, of this whole Chapter 91 issue for our committee is to focus on the public access and see where the spots are where there is no public access along the waterfront, and that particular property or those properties along Washington Street Extension would be a good place to start.
I would note that our other mission is public education.
Yeah, no, exactly.
About
And
not only public access, but education, not only for property owners, but along the beach. Or
Yeah.
whatever.
exactly.
Education is the other piece.
Right. And I think that's a very important one too. As we know, often when a home builder or a homeowner wants to do a project, they have to have people who are knowledgeable to do the work there. And so so I agree. I think the education is an important part of that. Perhaps I know the Enquirer and Mirror, particularly Josh Balling, is very much interested in public access on the waterfront. And there was an extensive article in Nantucket Today magazine, was it last year or something, that Josh wrote about the One Big Beach program and that sort of thing. So,
Who
all
owns
right.
the beach?
All right. Education, as Leslie says, I think is an important part of this. Anything else on Chapter 91, item number 1 there? All right, I'll follow up on that and see what we can do. Leslie, did you have something to add?
Hillary Rapport, who's not here to speak, was she looking at historic commission responsibilities for the harbor plan or for Harbor Place? Or for the Harbor Walk? There's a lot of harbors there.
Yeah. I believe her immediate involvement is with whatever they're calling the new Harbor Place project, where the 4 property owners have to.
Harbor Place and Wilkes Square. Okay.
Yeah, and Wilkes Square and whatever they're calling it now.
Okay, that's all I needed to know.
Great.
Well, Leslie, I might, Alan, just
Yeah.
to expand for a second. I think once you start that process, Leslie, that leads you to, in addition to zoning, what other legal parameters there are that affect that section of land.
Hmm.
And that took us to our own municipal harbors plan and to chapter 91.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, good point. Okay. Next item, potential takings list discussion. The official ones that are underway right now are Amelia Drive, that's underway. The town is involved in that. Stone Alley, the town again is, they've done a survey and Ken Bogrand is working on that, but the town has determined that in fact that should be taken, that should be a public way. And they are working on that. Independent Way was taken. That was the former Coon Street. That one is again done. The ones for consideration, we have requested Franklin Street for the mainly to provide parking for the two cemeteries, Old and New North. There are 4 spaces at the top of Franklin Street by the corner of New Lane. And as it's been marked as a private abutter way, which I don't believe that is the correct designation for it, we did put a request to the town to take Franklin Street. And the justification for that was that there are cars, those vehicles that are parked there all winter, and some of them are parked there for a good part of the summer. So anyway, that one is before the select board. Now, the other ones we have discussed, Wynn Street, Warren's Landing, and Somerset Road. Those those, I don't think we haven't, I'm just trying to think of what our action is on those. I don't believe we have done anything. With Warren's Landing, I couldn't get a hold of, wasn't Seth Gottlieb.
It is
Anyway.
Seth Gottlieb.
Who?
Seth Gottlieb is the head of that
Oh,
organization.
he is. Okay. No, then he's the one. I haven't been able to reach him. So the question I had for him was, did they, first of all, were they aware of the fact that if it was taken as a public way, that those speed bumps may have to go? That was one thing. And second, what is their, what's their feeling about that? Do they still want to have it taken? Because initially it came to us at their request. So as I said, I don't have information on that. And
You were looking for documents that they had that they
yeah, he was
showed
exactly
that the town was going to take that road.
For what it's worth, on town-owned roads,
I'm sorry, Lee.
there are speed bumps on York Way, York Street. Going up to the mill, there are 2 rather aggressive speed bumps.
Right. They're called traffic calming devices. And there is a process for those. As you come down West Dover Street, there used to be 2 of them. And one of them was removed because the residents around that one, every time a painter truck went by with letters on the top, they rattled. And so anyway, with regard to the so-called traffic calming devices, there is a process that you have to go through with traffic safety, and then it goes to the select board, and they have to approve those devices. Again, they're very specific. They have to be so wide so that if you hit them at whatever the speed limit is, they don't, they won't knock the tie rod ends out or something of your vehicle. Um, anyway, so yeah, that is an issue. So there are no other ones that I'm aware of that we have been pursuing than those. So, all right, as far as Warren's Landing then, I'll try Seth Gottlieb again. I did try him, it was shortly after our last meeting, I didn't get to him, and then I haven't tried since then, so I'll make a note to get back to that. Okay, anything else on takings list? Okay, downtown sidewalk, just sort of an announcement. Rob is doing a walk around down there at the corner of Easy and Broad Street on Friday, the 18th at 1 o'clock to discuss the road maintenance and the activities down there. As you know, the property in front of the land bank, the parcels the land bank purchased, we're going to widen the sidewalk and do things like that. Hillary is going to be there as well. So we'll see what, I want to be there myself, just as, just keep an eye on what's said. Okay, old, new, or other business, the historic colored cemetery access. There was a ramp that goes to the new path into historic colored cemetery from Vestal. Is it Vestal or Vesper Street, Vesper Lane? So that has been completed. Access to the cemetery, then the hospital has met all the agreements that were made at the time the hospital acquired that public way behind the hospital there so they could expand the hospital. And part of that was to provide an access to the historic colored cemetery, which they have done. So I can take that off of the list under old, new, and other business. Road encroachments and public road maintenance. I don't have anything specific on that. We did talk about encroachments and mainly rocks in the roadway and other encroachments. Washington Street in Matticat is underway. The town is, as Ken reported last month, they've done a survey. They've notified the abutters of certain encroachments along that way. The abutters have asked for no parking along that way. And the abutters have also asked for a sidewalk so the pedestrians didn't have to walk in the street in Washington Avenue along that way. So that's all I have. Does there anyone else on the committee have any business to come before us today? Yes.
Was Rob, or I see Rob McNeil is on the talk. Was he here to speak to the Washington Ave things or?
Not, I didn't ask him to speak directly about any of the issues. Rob, do you want to chime in on any of those issues that we've talked about, or particularly Washington Street?
Definitely not. I'm going to steer very wide of Washington Ave discussions.
Right.
As those are still unfolding. I was actually here to just talk briefly about Easy Street and Lower Broad. And certainly, Alan, you're invited, but if any other committee member is interested in joining the tour and discussions, providing feedback on the proposed improvements to the sidewalk or sidewalks along Easy Street and Lower Broad, I certainly welcome them if they can make it Friday at 1 o'clock. We will be masked up and socially distanced, but seeking feedback. And if you can't attend and just want to provide feedback, I'm happy to take emails or any of that. And then I think at some point we'll circle back and talk to the committee again about next steps. We're going to be looking, once we complete Easy Street and Lower Broad, we would be starting to tackle all of the perpendiculars next. Oak Street, Cambridge Street, the other side of Lower Main, and then Candle Street, that stretch between our sort of opposite Stop and Shop and back to the Nerda bus station. And so that would really solidify that whole corridor between the boats, which was the initial goal of the program.
Right.
And then from there, it's going to be, South Water Street and moving up Main Street.
Wow, I can't wait. So,
So, and I guess the other piece of this is that between that program that's been underway for some time now, the committee's program about making these important links and these other leftovers like the Prospect Hill area and those kind of things. At the same time, talking about the select board's goal of connecting a meaningful pedestrian access from 2FG, 4FG, 6FG campus all the way to the boats. So there's sort of a number of different activities that are ongoing.
right.
And I think we addressed that really for the first time in a meaningful way with the Capital Committee this year, just to make them aware of, I won't say the competing interests, but certainly all of the interests relating to bicycle, pedestrian, and vehicular interests.
Right. Great. That's definitely been a long-term project. Ed?
First of all, Rob, it was wonderful seeing the Lower Main urn and fountain in the background there from that historic picture. And that was wonderful. We'll soon see that on our streets again in a few weeks, I think. But besides that, Alan, since you're on the land bank as well, is the land bank involved at all with along the Easy Street when the park there with this sidewalk? Is there any input or is that
Yes.
different? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're fully supportive of widening that sidewalk, and so we've been working, I think, with Rob. I think Rob and Eric.
So it's a group effort, not just piecemeal. Okay.
Yes. So they coordinated with Public Works early in the design. I think so I did submit, or I sent around to the folks that are attending this coming Friday, the plan for the land bank park. If you haven't seen it, I could share it on the screen right now. Otherwise, there is proposed, I would say, meaningful widening proposed from the Easy Street bulkhead all the way, essentially all the way to the corner. You'll have an expansion into the park from roughly the existing edge of gutter line, approximately a minimum of 8 feet of sidewalk.
Right.
So that's going to be a substantial improvement, with all the busyness of people moving to and from the boats, as well as being able to access the park.
Right. Ed?
Alan, where is from your stance, probably in double boards here, where is the town in their discussions with Todd Arno on the building at the corner?
I speak fairly regularly with our representative to the Steamship Authority. The Steamship Authority did put did place an offer, this was several years ago, to Todd Arno about that property. And of course, there was quite a divergence in between the price and so on. So apparently that's nowhere. I did notice yesterday when I was down that way that the building is vacant and there's a for rent sign on it. So
I
I
was
did
in it once again, so I wasn't sure if that meant anything. Yes.
yeah, and I noticed that the building was also in pretty dilapidated condition. The windows, some rotted wood, and a bunch of other things. So anyway, maybe it'll fall down.
I guess they're waiting for the nor'easter. Okay.
Yeah, right, exactly. And by the way, our the missing sidewalks piece that we approved at our last November meeting was submitted directly to the select board and all the necessary parties. I haven't heard back any result for that, but they do have that, our specific proposal there.
Okay.
Okay, is there anything else to come before the committee this afternoon? Seeing none, I declare that we are at the end of our agenda and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all.
Good. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, everybody.
Happy and healthy holidays to everyone.
Yeah, you too.
Onward to 2021.
Yeah, boy, I'm looking forward to it.
I
Yeah, I know. Great. Okay. Lee, thank you for all your work there.
You're most welcome.